Get you to find a place. We'll get started with our guest speaker. It's wonderful to see you all here, and a few guests too, which is lovely. Landy Anderton, as some of you know, was a Moorhead Scholar at University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and he was also the captain of the UNC soccer team. So you can already get a sense of his versatility from the start. And after Chapel Hill, Landy went to seminary at Princeton Theological Seminary. After that, he went to law school at Georgetown Law School and ended up practicing law in the Justice Department, representing the United States government, and discovered about that time that he really did not like practicing law. So he went on to earn a PhD in clinical psychology and has been practicing ever since in Raleigh, a thriving practice. Landy is, last night he and my wife Cherry, who's a medical person, and we had supper together, and it's amazing to me. I know nothing about science and medicine, but Landy was just chiming right in with Cherry about the latest research on this, that, and the other thing. And then when it comes time for poetry, literature, theology, he's right there with me, too. So he's just a wonderful man, a beloved therapist, and a great friend. And today is his birthday. You can do better than that. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Landy. Happy birthday to you. So a couple of months ago, I called him and I said, Landy, on November 5th, some big things will happen, and a lot is happening already leading up to a national election. And it's going to be causing more and more stress, anxiety, worry, acrimony maybe, division, all kinds of things. And as if life wasn't stressful enough already before national. So, but you're hearing people's, the secrets of their hearts in therapy, day in and day out. You know what we worry about. You know our daily struggles. We're all not that different from each other in this way. And you have helped people learn to manage in spite of all of this. And would you mind coming and talking with us about this time in which we're living, the stuff we're all carrying around, and maybe even give us some thoughts about how we can do that. So he said, let me think about that. And he came back with a lovely title, Holding It Together When Things Fall Apart. Please welcome Landy Anderton.
I think it's on. No. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Little assistance, Gary. Okay. Thank you, Gary. I wish I could be a little more like Gary in the world of poetry and literature. Thank you for the birthday song. I woke up this morning thinking about it, but not in a typical way. I've always felt like we have birthdays backwards. Birthdays should be about your mother, not us. Birthday should be a day in which you celebrate the pain your mother went through. So I was thinking about Mom, your old Flora, this morning. But thank you very much. It's great to be back here at Wrightsville Beach. I spent a lot of time here when I was in college years ago. I had special memories for me. Years ago at Wrightsville Beach, I stumbled onto a quotation I've never forgotten by Isaac Deneson, a Scandinavian writer, who said that sweat, tears, and the sea salt water cures everything. And that's been special to me ever since. Yes, Gary and I talked about several topics I could address down here, and I need to be careful with my time because I'd like to leave a little time at the end for questions. Let me back up. Talked about the polarization in this country, which is severe. Many political scientists think it's never been this bad since the Civil War. And I would like to address some possible causes for that today. 1 in 6 people report that they've had a relationship with a friend or family that's been significantly disrupted. Show of hands, and anybody who's felt tension with anybody in your family or oh wow, hands up. Yes. We all feel it. And by the way, let me say my topic, how to hold it together when everything falls apart, sounds like a title for a support group for people who voted for Kamala Harris. It's not intended to be that. It's intended to be for all of us. Because if you voted for Trump, there will be rough times. There will be times when you get scared about what happens if these Harris people can disrupt things. And certainly everybody who voted for Harris is scared and sad and angry right now. I talk to a lot of people. These are tough times. So I want to talk about that a little bit. I want to talk about, secondly, a technique from marital therapy, which we use to address stuck, tough, difficult problems. You're pregnant or you're not, yes or no, kind of situations where you look like there's no solution. Thirdly, want to talk about briefly some psychological skills for managing this, keeping sane, and then finally finish up with some of the teachings of Jesus. We should be here at about 3 p.m. when I get here. I've got my clock going here. I've got to go fast. I'll talk about Trump and Harris. I won't call them vice president and president-elect. I'll talk about conservatives and liberals, even though all conservatives are not far right-wing, all liberals are not far left-wing. And so I hope I can just give you a little drink water. I usually end up giving Niagara Falls. Historically, of course, liberals are thought of as being empathetic, compassionate, too much heart, not enough head. And conservatives thought about being pretty practical, common sense, reasoning, too much head, not enough heart. Those are stereotypes, of course. I read an interesting book preparing for this by a guy named John Haidt, H-A-I-D-T. It's called The Righteous Mind, and it's written in 2012, and it could have been written 3 weeks ago. He really hits things on the money in terms of how we get into our beliefs. He studies the foundations of moral reasoning, he calls it. But in terms of where a lot of this started, first, he thinks a lot of it started, well, for many causes. There's an argument as to whether this turmoil, whether the politics has caused this disruption or whether it simply revealed pre-existing feelings that were already there. And the answer is probably some of both. But he looks back to 2008, the economic crisis, when a lot of people lost their jobs. Back when Lehman Brothers went under, people had to sell houses. And he said there were a whole lot of people that quickly got stratified into winners and losers socially. And then it was subtle and invisible. A lot of non-college educated, often male, rural people, this time more female, just felt sort of left out. There's talk about an income gap. He says it was really more about a dignity gap. A dignity gap. People felt looked down on. Quite often there were people on the right, people who felt like they'd been labeled losers, looked down on by the educated elites in the Democratic Party. But it was a dignity gap, he felt. And so people got really frustrated. They didn't feel like they were represented by the interests in Congress. And a lot of people were just looking for somebody to come in and blow stuff up, blow up the way he did business in Congress, stirred things up. So what happened? We had Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump, two people that want to come in and just really stir things up. And Donald Trump saw it. He understood. And, he said, I could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and people still vote for him. Well, he hasn't shot anybody yet, but he's done things that are way over the line for most presidential, pretty much any presidential candidate in terms of some of the criminal things that have occurred. And yet people still feel like he gets us. He gets us. But what is that about? Are people voting for him for totally monetary issues? Because a man who's a wealthy millionaire or billionaire, whatever his net worth is, who hangs around with very wealthy people, are they voting for him for that? He says, no, it's just deeper than that. It's just sort of a feeling that he gets this dignity issue and he's going to stick it to him. And no matter how outrageous he is, we'll vote for him. So Hate's got some interesting theories about that. Speculation about the voting, the political scientists will do that forever. It's about education. There's the old saying, some people have too much graduate school and not enough kindergarten. About money, it's just hard to tell. He did a study and he outlined 6 variables that he looks to upon which people make moral decisions in life, i.e. who you vote for. The first was fairness versus cheating. And it goes deep below the tip of the iceberg to things like, well, my old Uncle Earl used to say, you get to keep what you earn, no free lunch. Or Uncle Earl used to say, when somebody's in pain, we need to take care of it. You got a kid screaming at 3 a.m. with an earache and you don't have any health care coverage, we need to take care of it. So these different values pop up low on the iceberg and they determine how we'll make those moral decisions. So fairness versus cheating. Another is, will there be a policy of caring for people or will it harm people? Will it hurt people? The third is liberty versus oppression. You see that in the issue of women's health care and abortion. I believe in liberty. The other side would say, conservatives would say, well, we believe in liberty too. I have a business and the federal government has a stack of regulations I have to comply to that makes it just about impossible to run my business. I have to pay too many taxes. I need a little liberty. So liberty is important to both sides. But he looks at that issue. He looks at the issue of respect for authority, the flag, for example, the players that knelt in the NFL football games. The liberals said, that's just freedom of expression. Well, what's the big deal? And conservatives just could not get over the fact that liberals didn't see the symbolic value of this. They said, I have a brother who got killed in the war. How dare they not stand for the flag? So these issues run deep, and these are what determine how we end up making these decisions and how we vote. So that's respect for authority versus subversion and disrespect, loyalty versus betrayal and lack of loyalty, sanctity versus degradation of symbols. There are some things in society that just have to be at the core, that's sacred for us. And when people differ on that, that's how people vote differently. How the parties frame the message is very important. It's like fishing. You put bait on the hook, catch a fish, the fish thinks it's being fed. Right? So how you frame it is really important. What we do about this is the key. We have an exhausted majority, I think, in this country. People who are yearning for civility. People getting tired of all the fighting. People don't want to have to worry about Thanksgiving dinner. And what's Uncle Earl going to say? As you can tell, I got an uncle named Earl. I won't tell spectrum. But how can we relate at Thanksgiving? How can we talk if it comes up? In marital therapy, which I've been doing for 40 years, we talk about communication skills. And there's a real key theme here that you can keep in mind if Uncle Earl shows up at Thanksgiving and he's had a few drinks and wants to go off on Harris or Trump. Most conflicts don't get resolved because people talk about logic and reasoning and what they think is right. And they make good arguments quite often, but it doesn't work. The reason it doesn't work is the other person, their spouse or their partner, doesn't feel heard emotionally. They don't talk about feelings first. Feelings have to go first. Then you build trust based on how you handle the feelings. And that trust will allow you to get to the thinking stage, and you're willing to make compromises and settle. For example, if somebody shows up late, well, you said you'd be here on time. We're supposed to be at dinner at this time. This is going to be embarrassing. You always do this. Blah, blah, blah. That doesn't help. What would help is to talk about how you feel. Are you angry? Are you sad? Are you scared? Like when you said you'd be here on time, I told you we needed to be there. When you said you'd make the effort, and then you show up 15 minutes late, I feel sad. Not you've been a jerk again. You said you wouldn't do this again, but I feel sad. And you might say, well, what good does that do? Well, it gets the feelings out. I feel angry. I feel hurt. Now, the other person has two jobs to do. You'll see how this applies to politics in a little bit. The other part, we're in the marriage right now. We're in the bedroom or the kitchen. The other person has to mirror and validate. Mirroring, you may have heard before, is simply reflecting back what they've said in the same or similar words. So I hear you saying that you had an emergency at work, and that's why you're late. And I hear you say that you're mad too about the emergency. And I hear you saying that you're frustrated. And the other person says, yes, that's right. Well, tell me more. So you get them to elaborate about their feelings. You keep mirroring it back until they feel heard. Secondly, you need to validate. That doesn't mean you're saying what they're saying is valid or they're right. You're simply saying hypothetical. Like a lawyer in court, it's a hypothetical situation. You're saying, okay, if that's how you saw it, if that's what happened at work, I can understand how you feel this way. So you're basically saying, even the way you see it, you're not nuts. You're not crazy. I'm still mad. I still think you need to do a better job. I'm still upset. But I can understand how you see it that way. Now, then this is called the talking stick in couples therapy. You switch the talking stick. The other person gets to talk about their feelings. And then the different spouse has to mirror and validate that. So when this happens first, it builds trust. And when you get to the problem-solving stage of the discussion, each person's willing to compromise because they feel heard. And so this is really important. You're basically sort of taking control by, not control in a bad sense, but by taking control of the discussion by giving it away. You take control by giving control to them by saying, tell me about your feelings. You let them keep the mic. You let them stay in the spotlight. You don't grab the mic. As soon as you grab the mic and start saying, you've lost them. You've lost them. So that's very important when you're talking to Uncle Earl. You want to get Uncle Earl to talk about his feelings and tell me more. The more you do that, the more he will feel heard. And if you do this well enough, you'll get what I call the IPOP test portion of this. The IPOP test is if you have mirrored back, if you put a zipper on your opinion and your feelings and just keep asking questions and get all their feelings out, and you do it well. It's sort of like the little balsa wood plane I used to have when I was a kid. It had a little rubber band on the propeller, and you wind the propeller up, and you unwind that propeller, and you go. Finally wind down. Well, that's what you want to do with Uncle Earl. You want to wear him out. I used to say about Karl Marx that he, forget about his politics, that he could wear a person out by listening to them. So you want to get Uncle Earl to just be worn out. And when he wears out, then you get to make your speech. But he'll be listening because he'll feel heard. Otherwise, if you jump in quickly, he's not going to pay attention to you. He's going to write you off just in a few seconds. Proverb says a soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. Proverbs have great psychology. So, you have to talk low and slow. Calmness is contagious. See that in meetings. If there's one person that's calm, talks low and slow, that's a great rule. Talk low and slow. Inside. And Uncle Earl is being controlled, but he doesn't know. No rebuttals. Like I say, if you open your mouth, you'll lose them fast. Your anger is like gasoline for their match. People respond to anger. You can't insult them. Nobody's ever learned anything by insults. They asked Will Rogers, the American humorist, one time how people learn things. He said, well, I think they learn things in one of four ways. They watch, they listen, they read a book, and some people just have to tinkle on an electric fence. But he didn't mention insults. You're never going to teach anybody anything by insulting them, even though it feels good. Anger's got a sweetness. Doesn't anger feel good sometimes? Just to get it out, say, okay, heck it, I'm just going to tell them. But it never solves anything. Assumptions, you have to be careful with, very careful with assumptions. We make assumptions all the time. You ask a fish, how's the water today? Fish says, what's water? You have to be real careful what you assume. The goal is dialogue, not debate. We're not going to debate with Uncle Earl. There's just no point. Dialogue, find out, make it look like you're just interested in what you believe. That's all. It's the only chance you have that he'll ever listen to you when you start talking. And it still may not work, but at least you got a chance. You got no chance if you jump in and say, let me tell you, Earl, let me tell you where you got it. Let me tell you what you're missing here. You've lost it. Okay. This may sound sort of kumbaya. Let's all hold hands. Woo-woo. Nice, tender, condoning the other side. It's not. This takes guts. What I'm talking about takes real guts, a real man, a real woman, to control your ego and your anger and just let them talk. And when they start getting hot, Earl starts having smoke come out of his ears. Just keep breathing. Breathing's crucial. You have to breathe. Like right now, I'm breathing just to stay calm. Take a breath. As I talk, pay attention to your abdomen as you breathe. You don't have to try to breathe. Your body will breathe on its own. Just pay attention as you listen to me to your abdomen. It's going to rise up and drop back down. We don't breathe regularly. Heartbeat's about 65, 75 times a minute, 80, whatever. We breathe 12 to 18 times a minute. It's irregular. Just pay attention to your breathing whenever you want to stay calm, and that brings you into the present, and that will help you be aware of what's going on, which is you're getting ready to pop off at Uncle Earl, and you shouldn't. All right, some suggestions just for Thanksgiving, some quick suggestions, and then we'll get into more of the mental health portion. It's okay to let everybody know we're not going to be talking politics today. I think that's fine. Just say, look, we're not going to be talking politics. Or if it comes up, it's good to say, why don't we table this for another time when we're both a little calmer? I think that's a helpful thing to do. Humor can be funny. You can change the topic. Humor is a good form of empathy. Just to say something else. You have to be careful with that. I don't know. Okay, yeah, I'll vote for a guy who'll heal the economy, lower my taxes, and make it against the law for the guy next to me in the airplane to take his shoes off. Wacky. A couple of concrete suggestions, however, are, and these are good ones, to say, Uncle Oral, this seems really powerful for you. Could you tell me something that happened, a story from your life that would help me understand how this is so important to you? Getting to talk about that. That's real important. I had a guy one time who was talking about gun rights, and he was very angry about it. And I did something like that. And he started telling me a tender story of how when he was a little boy, his father died. And the only guy that really showed attention to him was his grandfather. His grandfather took him out hunting, taught him about gun safety, made sure he knew exactly how to handle a gun, never harm anybody. They would shoot beer cans, they'd shoot rabbits, whatever. But guns were so special to this guy. And he probably never told anybody that story. A lot of the people on the far left just said, oh, all you care about is guns. When you ask them to talk like that, you're getting context. You're putting it into a context, which can really be helpful. You can say, please give me any thoughts you have on compromises or solutions. Like, what would you do, Uncle Earl? I'd be really interested. So those can be helpful things to do as well. So that's some thoughts about the causes of this. An example from marital therapy about helping Uncle Earl talk about his feelings. Treat him like a balsa wood propeller. He'll wind down. Let him wind down. And then you could actually say, Uncle Earl, can I have permission to tell you how I see this? That always works. May I please have permission? That may sound sort of formal and phony, but believe me, it works. May I please have permission to tell you my views on this? And 99% of the time they'll say yes. Go ahead. All right. In terms of mental health, like I said, if you're in favor of Trump, you're probably still celebrating. If you're in favor of Harris, you're probably still grieving. We have a lot of emotional feelings in all of us. I'm assuming 52.7 of you voted for Trump and 47.3 voted for Harris. That's not true, but I don't want to hurt people's feelings. I'd like for you to think a little more like a shrink when you're thinking about how to manage your own feelings. A quick little 101 here. In therapy, we talk a lot about 3 buckets: thoughts, feelings, and behavior. Thoughts meaning movements you play in your head, what you're saying in your head right now. The guy's up there standing in front of you doing this funny thing with his finger next to his ear. Just whatever's popping through your head, those are your thoughts. They precede and cause feelings, and those feelings are nothing but the body's response to thought. The feeling is nothing but the body's response to a thought. You tell yourself something scary, like our country's just going to erupt, your body's going to tighten up. The body says, okay, if that's what you say, I'll get tight. If you tell yourself something healing, like, no, I have faith, most people are sane. It's the nuts on both extremes that are driving us crazy. Most people want peace. Tell yourself something healing, your body can respond with calmness. Depression, anger, and injustice, and anxiety are the main feelings I'm seeing nowadays. Depression comes from loss. Anybody who's depressed has experienced a loss, and you have to talk about it, get it out of your system with tenderness. If you can feel it, you can feel it. You can feel it. You can do it. Put it into words. Anger is usually about injustice. If depression is about loss, anger is about injustice. Fear is about the future. Scary movies we're playing in our head about the future, but our thoughts are just crucial. Andrew Carnegie said, if you think you can do a thing, or if you think you can't, you're right. One of my favorite writers, Annie Lamott, said, my mind is like a bad neighborhood. I try not to go there alone. So we get lost in our thinking, and we don't even remember that we have thoughts, but we are not our thoughts. We have thoughts, but they're just thoughts. Remember, the thoughts are like the leaf in the stream. We're sitting over by the side of the stream. We can watch those thoughts, and we don't have to go wrestle with them. We don't have to get out in the stream and try to grab that leaf. We can just sit back and watch it. When I have a scary thought, quite often I'll just say to myself, thanks for your opinion. Thanks for your opinion. Just try to let it pass. The black and white thinking is really dangerous. We all know somebody who has black and white thoughts. It's like somebody who wants to weed a flower garden with a bulldozer. I mean, you'll get all the weeds. You sure will. But the grief is like a wound. It has to be scrubbed, and that hurts. But if you do that, then that means it'll heal. AA calls it stinking thinking. This is a great phrase, stinking thinking. Worry is a great AAism. Worry is like paying a debt you don't owe. I just stumbled on this a couple years ago. It just hit me like a brick in the face because I'm a big worrier. I don't pay money I don't owe. But worry is like paying a debt you don't owe. Whatever you're worried about today, family, parents, children, friends, politics, this country, is that a debt you owe right now? You can't do anything about it. Maybe you can do something about it when you get home today. You can make a call. You can try to intervene. But right now, this instant, there's nothing any of you can do about that problem that you're most worried about right now. If you think about what am I most worried about. It's speaking about me. I'm the guy who looks at his tomato plants and they're looking good. I pull them out of the ground just to make sure the roots are okay. You just can't do that. But changing, everybody in this room has changed the belief. You all believe in Santa Claus. At some point you change that belief. Paul in Romans 12:2 says, being transformed by the renewal of your mind. That's pure psychology. As Gary and others of you who have studied the scripture might know, the word Paul uses for mind is really equivalent to our word for thoughts. In other words, he's saying, hey, there's no Santa Claus. And we take that Santa Claus cassette out, put a new one in that says, there's no Santa Claus, and that's how we change. Keep up your good relationships, partners, spouses, very important during times of crisis to stay connected. A change is a good word. We know that the only thing in the world that likes change is a wet baby. But in a relationship, think, what can I change? The most flexible element in any system will ultimately be the controlling element in that system. So if you ask yourself, what could I change? If you change, they've got to change sooner or later. It may get worse, it may stay the same for a while, but sooner or later, if you change enough, they're going to change. They have to. It's impossible not to. It's like physics. And so if you identify what they need and can give them more of what they need by changing your behavior, they will start giving you, most likely, more of what you need. So big change. Take a techno diet. You don't need to listen to that news all that long. You don't need to leave it on. You don't need to leave Fox on, CNBC. Get enough to figure out if the world's blown up, and then turn it off. We're listening to too much. You don't need it. It's replication. You're just seeking viewers. Okay, how are we doing on time here? There's so many ways to take care of yourself. Service. Jesus, we can modulate Jesus. I'm interested in what we find in Jesus' life, how we can find Jesus in our suffering. So if we look at Jesus, what did he do when he was waiting on the Jews and the Roman Empire to come on down to him and get him? He served. He kept serving. Find ways to help. There's no burden in life heavier than having nothing to carry. There's no burden in life heavier than having nothing to carry. Who are you not serving that you could serve more? That's a good question. Gratitude is another thing to think about. A study at Stanford Medical Center showed that people who every night wrote down 5 things they were grateful for, over 3 months experienced a decrease in cortisol, which is a hormone in the fight-flight category. It's a stress hormone. So if you focus on what you're grateful for, what you think about will grow. It's very important. Pay attention to what you pay attention to. Because what you pay attention to will grow. These are very important things. You can change these mantras are very important. This is one of my favorites. Change have to get to. Change have to get to. And you'll soon see that all these things that you've been whining and complaining about, I'm glad I'm around to get to do it. All right. The most important thing I could say spiritually today is to develop a quiet time, develop a meditation time. Gary knows about contemplative meditation, contemplative prayer. It's a time when we can sort of take our foot off the gas. We can, I like to call it taking out the trash up here in my head once a day. Just sit and pray and meditate. Learn a meditation skill. Pay attention to your breathing. And that can certainly help you in many, many ways. I would say that's the most important thing you can do. Creating a sacred pause in your life. It creates a quietness that allows us just to live with God, to live with the Holy Spirit, to be open to God's grace. We don't try to bring God in. All we got to do is just be quiet and listen. Listen. Just to read a verse. Just to think about a mantra and just be quiet. The quieter we are, the more we can hear. So your personal spiritual journey, your journey inward is so crucial. The most crucial part of everything I've said today for staying calm during what we're going through. This becomes the principal activity of the day, hopefully. That's a key phrase. Make this the principal activity of your day. Not when you're going to walk or play tennis or read. When am I going to do my meditation and spiritual journey? And I'll fill everything else in around that. This has got to be the principal activity of the day. And if it is, it's sort of like you've got a personal sanctuary you're carrying around with you. It becomes a personal sanctuary, a place where you can always worship and pray. If you're standing in line at the bank, you don't have to wait. You can meditate. Learn to do that. We can then just we can find Christ more in our pain. Christ said, love your enemies. Why would he say that? That's impossible. There are a lot of ways we could speculate. I've always felt like he just was so shrewd and wise. He knew that if you don't love your enemies, you're going to be upset. And nobody who's upset or angry in life can ever be happy. He knew that. And I just think the things he said, you can believe because he said them, or you can believe because everything he said was so wise, and that's why he said it. But love your enemies means think big picture and not get so hooked so that you give yourself an ulcer or coronary, which a friend of mine calls God's 2x4. So those are some things to keep in mind. We know what our marching orders are. Micah in the Old Testament says he showed you what is good, what the Lord required of you, to do justice, love kindness, walk humbly with your God. So what do we do when this craziness is going on out there? That's what we do. What does that mean to you? To do justice, love kindness, walk humbly with your God. I mean, we just keep crucifying Jesus over and over. Every time we fight, every time we do all this conflict. And nothing's changed since Jesus was on the cross. It's still the same. We can still cause harm the same way they did to him. The Roman soldiers pierced his side and they demeaned him. They demeaned his body, but they couldn't destroy his body. They demeaned him, but they couldn't destroy him. Why? Because we know death is not the last word. And we Christians have to dwell on that over and over, and that can give me goosebumps just to think about it. Nothing falls outside the gospel. Isn't that amazing when you think about it? So that's how we can take comfort in Jesus' life. All right, those are some thoughts. Time for some questions. Yes.
I'd just like to comment that was amazing, and it's all about respect, isn't it? It's just all about respect.
Yes.
I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. Yeah, respect is good. You can have contempt for somebody's belief. You can have contempt for what they've done, but no contempt for persons. No, they're a child of God just like us. We don't want to have contempt for them as a person. They're just ignorant. They're still learning. But yeah, contempt for beliefs, but not for people. It's hard stuff. I mean, we got Thanksgiving coming up, and if you feel it, I feel it. I feel a subtle pulling back. I think my friends and I, we already know who we are. And it's like the Crips and the Bloods. In Los Angeles, the gangs. You wear a blue shirt, you wear a red shirt, you don't wear that, but we know. You got a sense. I know who they voted for. I know what they believe. And people are already drifting apart. And it's got to stop. I think most people want it to stop. Most people want to have a dose of civility.
I have a question.
Yes.
In the Uncle Earl example, at some point, don't you have to protect yourself? If Uncle Earl keeps at it and those tactics aren't working, at what point you go, okay, this is not good for me and my mental health? How do you handle those situations?
You definitely have to protect yourself, and you may have to do it early if he starts cussing at you and raising his voice. You have a right and an obligation to say, Uncle Earl, I really want to talk to you about this, but I want to have a dialogue, not a debate. In the last 20 seconds, you have started 3 or 4 sentences with the word you, a couple sentences with you people. And I'd like to talk with you, but if you can't talk and dialogue, why don't we just talk about this another time? Or why don't we just postpone this? I don't know that we can talk about it. But yeah, you have to defend yourself. Yeah, don't let people abuse you. This is, I said it's not kumbaya stuff. You have to keep your strength. Defend yourself. And some people are, I think of them as contempt mongers. They just have a lot of contempt. And contempt is different. You got anger coupled with disgust, then it graduates to contempt. And contempt is in couples therapy, I always equate contempt with eye rolling. You know, when I'm the first session with somebody, when somebody just rolls their eyes, I think, uh-oh, this may not end well. Contempt, imitating, making fun of the other person. So like, oh, well, you just like guns. So you just don't like imitating things like that. That's a deep sign. And yeah, you have to defend yourself for sure. If you don't defend yourself, he won't respect you. Like in sports, I mean, yeah, some sports you have to push back because you want them to respect you. You got to push back to show them I'm not a wimp. But you talk low and slow, and you very calmly, in a low and slow way, say, Uncle Earl, I think this conversation is over. I've asked you to stop using four-letter words, and you've increased. Your face is red, and everyone at the table is embarrassed. If you talk low and slow, you can say anything. Say, Uncle Earl, would you please leave?
How do you go about dealing with somebody that has no respect for your feelings? If you're trying to have a conversation and they say, "Oh, you know, just get over it. You have to learn to let it go," and they don't value your opinion, and you talk to them about theirs, but they don't want to hear about yours.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's eye rolling. You just gave us a good summary of eye rolling. You said that's eye rolling. That you're being dismissed. You can give it one or two tries before you give up. Like, I'd like to have a conversation. I'm getting the feeling that I'm mirroring. Right? What did you say? You said it nicely. You said that they don't
have any respect for myself.
Yeah, Uncle Earl, it just sounds like you don't have much respect for what I think.
Or how I feel.
For how I feel. I'd like to continue this conversation. Can we agree that you'll try to hear my feelings and just see it as feelings? That's all. And I'll try to do the same with you. Would you agree to that? Because otherwise we can't talk. And you can't. You really can't. So you give it a couple of tries and they may soften and they slow down. After you hear them, validate and say, well, I can understand how you feel this way, but I just broke a rule, by the way. Quite often you want to get rid of the word but. Try getting rid of the word but from your English language. It sounds crazy, but it will work. Try and instead.
Suppose you're at Uncle Earl's house.
Good question. If you're at Uncle Earl's house,
I stay away.
well, there are these rules about what we do in somebody else's house. Suppose Uncle Earl is doing it in your house. Bad in a different way. I would just say, Uncle Earl, I realize I'm in your house. Better go ahead and put it out. I realize I'm in your house. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but then go ahead and proceed.
Yeah, I find that Uncle Earl is not necessarily disrespecting me in my beliefs, but I also find that Uncle Earl is talking about sort of the least of these.
Sort of the what?
The least of these, and his opinions on those folks. And often it's not very complimentary.
Yeah.
And there's something in me that wants to defend those folks, and I don't know how to deal with that exactly.
Well, I think if you mirror, say, so Uncle Earl, it sounds like you don't like the least of these. Tell me more how you don't like them. If he's talking about the poor or minorities, tell me more. Again, just breathe, stay calm, try to wear him down, get it all out of his system. And then when he finally looks like he's feeling heard, you've mirrored him, you've validated him, and said, well, tell me a story where that begins. Can you tell me, help me understand how you got to that point? All of this is leading up to the point later when you get to make your point, which is, Earl, as a Christian, Jesus talked a lot about these groups you've mentioned. They were very important to him, and so they're important to me. I feel hurt when you talk about that. So now you're taking the talking stick. You're not saying, "Earl, you're violating Christian teachings," or "Earl, you're a nut," or "Earl, you're a bigot." You're saying, "Earl, it hurts me when you say that." Yeah, we don't have to call anybody a bigot. All we have to do is say, when you say that, it hurts me deeply to my core. It's the same thing, yes.
Could you talk for a minute about how self-esteem fits into all that?
I'm sorry, how
Self-esteem fits into those conversations?
self-esteem is just crucial to everything. It's crucial for you when you're talking to them to have good self-esteem and realize that you're okay no matter what they say. It's like, I'm bulletproof. You can make fun of anybody. And that helps you breathe and stay calm and talk low and slow. As to the roots of prejudice or bigotry, it comes from low self-esteem. People are looking for somebody else to look down on. If they feel low, they can always find somebody below them. So self-esteem is crucial for you to perform well. It's also crucial in explaining where people who are full of hatred and anger get that, I think. Yes.
I taught peer conflict resolution when I was a middle school teacher, and I think she kind of touched on that, you messages. And so when I can say, I hear you talking about me, you and your liberals, you and your ideas, you and your conservatives, whatever you messages you talked about. So when I ask the kids to help resolve conflicts about how they treated each other when they were 12 years old, that was a real step for them. And I really feel like it's one of those basics, like what I learned in kindergarten, to simply have them articulate, like you said, why are you feeling this way? Tell me what you think instead of telling me what I think. And I think that's really hard for 12-year-olds or 50-year-olds to do that. And so I would love a sentence to sort of help turn that message around so they can say, the wind down, whatever you want to call it, let them talk. But how do I make them make a productive conversation out of it so it's not just more of the same, this is the story I heard on X. I want something that's a little more tangible because I get into a lot of conversations at different forums on social media, and I can kind of tell trolls, but I can also listen to people that are different from me. And I have had some really great conversations from total strangers, but to try and help figure that divide. But it does come from somewhere, that respect you have for another opinion, but also knowing that there's a lot of falsehoods out there. There's a lot of misinformation along with the miscommunication. So that's what my question is, how do we get the message to go from factual without getting too emotional? I mean, there's a real problem between beliefs and facts right now. And I guess if I still all that stuff I just said, that's what it all comes down to.
Yes. Well, those are difficult situations. One thing is just simply to say, could we talk about what you believe and what I believe rather than those liberals and those conservatives, just sort of keep it with us. In terms of asking for one little mantra, I just try to take a deep breath and remind myself that I'm okay. And I try to see them as scared and searching. I don't mean I look down on them. I guess maybe it sounds like I'm looking down on them. I sort of look at them as searching and lost. And I try to be patient to say, I've been upset myself, and just to try to see them as searching. In terms of the factual issues, just to drop back to low and slow and say, well, there are other views on that. If you'd like to talk about them, I can tell you what I think about that fact or that issue. I think in terms of just staying in charge of your own anger is the main thing, just to see them as searching, asking them if they'll talk calmly, asking them if they'll talk about what they believe rather than what they've heard. I'm not sure I'm getting at that. We can talk afterwards if you want. I'm not sure. You raised a lot of important points.
Landy, thank you very much.